Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Gonna do some more rainbow backgrounds, but this time I'm not going to use my Nouveau Shimmer powders. Just the wheels started turning. So anyway, before I get to that, I pulled out the Abstract Triangles background stamp. This one came out years ago. I'm not even sure when this came out. What does it say on the back? 2016. Still available. Got a link to it. Just another oldie but goodie, because I keep telling you guys, it's like geometric abstract style backgrounds are so much fun to create with, and they just go with everything. So I have the background face up on my work surface. I inked it up with clear embossing ink, and I'm using Canson XL watercolor paper that I used my anti-static powder tool on first, and then pressed the watercolor paper into the background stamp. This time, instead of using my fingers, I used my little mini Stampin' Bug that I had the text on the screen about, because Robin had sent me a little set of these from her Etsy shop. Not sure when. It's a cute little thing. And then she commented on one of my videos and was like, why don't you use that? I was like, oh, duh, that's a great idea. So I did. So anywho, I did 2 panels, because as always, why not? So I've got both these panels that are stamped, coated with detail white embossing powder, melting it with my heat tool, tilting it back and forth in the light to make sure there's no dull grainy areas. Everything's shiny and smooth and melted. And then once that's done, you can either tape these to a hardboard. I've shown that in a ton of videos. Or I'm using my MISTI sticky mats that I have some cut down. This just keeps the cardstock from warping too much when it starts getting really wet, because when it starts to warp and curl, everything starts running off the sides. So taping it to a hardboard or the sticky mats, either one works great. So this time I'm going to use Distress Spray Stains along with some Brutus Monroe Pearl Shimmer Mist. I've used the Shimmer Mist in other videos. I like using it just for straight up splatter. But I was like, this would be a way that I could get kind of a rainbow background, also a shimmer. Let's just see what happens. So that's what I did. I heavily sprayed the backgrounds first with water, and then I'm spraying them with my Distress Spray Stains, and then I'm spraying it with the Shimmer Mist, but I'm pretty sure my Shimmer Mist is sort of clogged. After I was done, I was like, why isn't it doing more of a mist? And then I looked and I was like, it's probably because I didn't shake it up enough and it got like blobs of shimmer stuck in it. So I'll have to like clean it out. But during this, I was like, I'm not going to wait. So I just poured some of it out onto my little palette, picked it up with a fan brush, and then just kind of tapped it all over the backgrounds because I wanted it more dispersed. You know, I didn't want just like blobs of shimmer here and there. So it worked. It ends up being fine in the end. So I did that. I added a bit more water. As always, everything looks like a hot, ugly mess when it's wet. It'll look better when it's dry. But I did end up actually like sopping up a bunch of this just with a tissue. It's not as obvious on camera, but like a lot of those the darker areas weren't just darker, like they were turning muddy. Because again, you're working with all liquids. And when you're doing all liquids, things can, just get ugly. So I sopped it up. I could have just left it like that and let it dry, but I wanted to place more. So I still added a bit more sprays, a little bit more water. Why not? And then I just let these completely dry. Like walked away from them, stopped messing with them, And now that they're dry, it's interesting to me how, the complete difference, how it looks from wet to dry, and then like the colors doing their own thing. So now that they're dry, I just peel those sticky mats off, put the little plastic covers back on the sticky mats. I'm done with those. And then I can trim these panels down. I want them to be smaller than my A2 card bases. So these I trimmed down to like 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So I did that with both, just using my little guillotine trimmer here. And this also trims off the edges where like the stamp didn't go, completely all the way to the edge, or anytime there is like pooling or just little ugly bits that can sometimes end up on the edges, trim them off, you're good to go. So I did all of that. And then I'm using the Spring in My Step stamp set again from CZ Design because I'm kind of obsessed with it. There's just so many good sentiments. And this Paper Hugs one I wanted to use again, like really bad. So pulled that out and just some vellum from my stash. Put this in my MISTI. Same Same song and dance, anti-static powder tool, ink up the stamp with clear embossing ink, stamp it onto the vellum, flip it around, do the same thing. So I've got 2 of them. Then I'm going to coat those with that same detail white embossing powder. I thought about using gold. Totally could have used gold. It would have looked gorgeous in gold. Silver would have looked really nice too. Because I ended up adding silver splatter because there's never enough. But either metallic would look nice, but I just decided to go with white. Melted those with my heat tool, set those aside. Then I added silver splatter. So I'm using my Zig Silver mica liquid. I've shown the gold in videos. I know people are asking me. Simon Says Stamp has not been able to restock these because for whatever reason Zig wants them to order I'm exaggerating, but it's a ridiculous amount, a bajillion. And it's just not feasible. So if Zig would please change their policies and allow Simon Says Stamp to restock the brilliant gold mica liquid and the silver mica liquid, I would like that. Okay, thanks, bye. So if you can't get your hands on these liquids, it's fine. The Kuretake Zig Starry Colors palette that I also linked to, that is another great option, and at least you get more colors with that. So either one creates fabulous splatter. So I splattered these backgrounds just to give it a little extra something. It was a little bit redundant in a sense, but still. White splatter would have looked really nice with this too. So yeah, whatever floats your boat. So I did all the splattering, set those aside, let them dry again. And then the Paper Hugs Sentiments, I used the coordinating wafer die to die cut those from the vellum. So I got those die cut, and then I wanted to get the insides of the cards done. So my card bases are Simon's smooth white cardstock, scored at 5.5 inches. They're top folding A2 size cards. And then I used my Post-it tape to mask off where the score line is. And then I just inked up that abstract triangles background again with Simon's Fog ink, and then stamped that onto the inside of both cards. So I've got that nice pattern going on, but it's nice light. That fog ink is one of my go-tos. And then for the sentiment on the inside, I'm using the Spring in My Step set again. Pulled out this sentiment from it. And then I'm going to do my multicolor stamping again. I've shown this in a lot of recent videos. It's fun. So I have a craft mat here. This is just a small one that you can get for the Tim Holtz glass media mat. I'll have a link to it. It's just a little replacement one. It's just more convenient, so I'm not dealing with my big one and rolling it out. But non-stick craft mat. And then I mush oxide inks onto this using just the side of the ink pad, and I'm using the same colors as the sprays, so mustard seed, mermaid, lagoon, and picked raspberry. So I mush them on there, and then I roll my brayer through that, and roll it back and forth a few times. It starts mixing those colors, and it picks them up onto the brayer, and then I just roll the brayer onto the stamp it on the inside of the card. I ink it up a second time because using the brayer this way, you're not getting as much ink on the stamp as you would just pressing an ink pad onto it. So I just ink it up twice. And that also helps to get those colors to blend. So I'm getting basically all the colors of the rainbow for the most part with just this. It's so fun. And then every time I do this, I'm like, what other stamps can I ink up this way? So anywho, stamp that. And then I stamped the little sub-sentiment from the same set with just VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. And that's another reason why I love Kathy Zielski. Love her sentiment sets because these, sentiments just kind of crack me up. You're my favorite. Don't tell the others. I'm like, yep. And I'm like, and just because I'm that type of person, I'm like, I'll make multiple cards that say that, same sentiment and send them out to people and tell them all that you're my favorite. Don't tell the others. Anyway, after I did that, I pulled out these little foam strips and I cut them in half so that they're extra narrow. This works with foam tape as well. It helps if you have backing paper on both sides so that things aren't really sticking to your scissors. Again, I recommend the Tim Holtz scissors. I always link to these little snips. These are what I call my little adhesive scissors because they've got the Teflon coating on them so they don't stick as much as regular. And I am putting this foam tape on the back of these letters. Normally, I don't do this sort of finicky work. With a sentiment like this, I purposely chose this one because this would be the easiest to do this with. If it was thinner letters or very scripty font, that sort of a thing, I ain't gonna bother, or almost will never bother because, it's just time consuming. This wasn't that bad. you know, because most of the letters, everything's just kind of like straight, and the few little curves here and there, well, these thin little pieces of foam tape, it just works. You could also just adhere everything direct. That works too. I just, every once in a while, it's worth the little tiny bit of extra effort to pop things up, and it gives it that little extra bit of dimension, and you know, you still have that bit of transparency with the vellum. So it just gives it that little extra something. So I popped these onto those backgrounds. So now they're popped up. You can't see the foam tape through the vellum, hence the effort of getting it all in place. And then I had also cut down some black cardstock to be slightly larger than these panels, just to frame it a bit. Just because sometimes I add, you know, a matting layer. Back in the day, that's all I used to do. Like, everything was matted. You'd mat it like 3 times and then mat the next layer 3 times. You know what I mean? But now it just depends on my mood. So this time, decided to mat everything. So matted that with the black cardstock, just adhering those layers together with my craft tacky glue. And then I'm going to adhere these to those card bases. And as always, like a broken record, you could always stop here, but I'm going to add some bling. Not a lot, just a bit. I really like there's a lot going on, and you guys will really be able to see the shimmer at the end here, but how can one not add bling to cards? So of course I've got some Studio Katia round iridescent gems. These ones are fun. They're faceted on the tops. They're not shaped like your standard gems, you know, that we all use. These ones are really fun because they've just got a ton of little like facets all over them, and they're kind of iridescent, but they're not super blingy. And then when the glue dries clear, they just give it that little extra something. So I adhered those into place with dabs of craft tacky glue, and that finished off these cards. So I'm going to tilt these in the light, and you can see that shimmer from the Brutus Monroe Shimmer mist. It's interesting, you know, like it just gives it that little extra something. You got all these colors that are just doing their own thing, and then the popped up vellum sentiment and a little bit of bling. And then I really enjoy how, like, when you open them up and then you got that bright multicolor sentiment on the inside as well. So just fun little elements. So this was a good experiment, you know, just mixing and matching and playing and seeing what would happen with those backgrounds. So as always, I will have links to all the supplies I used. You can check that out in the description box below the video. I will also link to my blog post, and in my blog post it's pictures and picture links to everything, just to make it easier to navigate. So anyone who's interested, it's all linked down below for you. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting. I very much appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.